What is up, guys? It is Baseball Nerd. We are going to be doing our 2020-2021 free agent list, going through the top 50. It's going to be a little quicker because I have 50 of them, so I'm not going to go too in-depth, at least on these guys, more at the bottom. We're going to be working our way from 50 to number 1. And, yeah, none of these guys that I have here are any predictions. None of them are for teams that they already played on or are playing with currently, I mean. These are all going to be predictions of them leaving and going somewhere new, going to a different team. A couple of them are going back to spots that they did play at before in these predictions, but a lot of them I try to scatter it out to teams that I think are going to be trying to make moves at the deadline, or not at the deadline, but during free agency. And yeah, so we'll get started right now with Jonathan VR. He's a second baseman, can kind of play around the whole infield, first, second, short, anything he has to play third. And switch hitter, I have him going to Milwaukee. I think after they lost Travis Shaw and Mike Moustakas last year in free agency, that they could really use another guy to play the infield. They got Daniel Vogelbach at the end of the year last year and through the trade deadline and from Seattle. And now they kind of need that other hitter in their lineup to get their offense rolling again. Lorenzo Cain opted out last year, and Christian Yelich had a really down year, so I think they could use that. And number 49, we have a guy who's leaving Milwaukee. He's older. He's at the end of his career, kind of. He's a really good righty hitter, but maybe could use a spot to be a DH somewhere or something like that. And I think Cleveland will be the perfect spot for Mr. Ryan Braun, being either a DH or just playing the outfield. Their outfield didn't hit super well last year. Franmil Reyes DH'd a lot, and they lost, Puig they had there. Michael Brantley left a couple years ago to Houston, obviously. And so I think Ryan Braun would be a good fit there to maybe on a 1-year, 2-year deal, finish out his career. And yeah, I think he could be a DH or an outfielder there and be fine. And moving on to Jonathan Scope here, I have him going to the New York Yankees. And it's terrible, but whatever. You get the idea. DJ LeMahieu is leaving in free agency. In my prediction, he obviously could stay in real life, might happen, but they need a second baseman. Gleyber Torres is taking over at shortstop. I think Jonathan Scope would be a nice fit for them to play second base and hit for them every day and try to. He won't be DJ LeMahieu, but a cheaper guy they can fill in there and maybe bolster more of their catcher position, maybe bolster and get some more pitching, more bullpen arms. So I think that'd be a nice fit for them there. Moving on to 47, we got Chris Archer, starting pitcher. I have him also going to Milwaukee. They need pitching. They definitely need starting pitching. Brandon Woodruff had a good year. Devin Williams and Josh Hader in the bullpen. They could use a couple more arms after they're losing Jeremy Jeffries this year in free agency. But I think they could really use a Chris Archer, another guy towards the 1-2 spot in their rotation to pitch with Brandon Woodruff. I think Chris Archer would be a nice fit there. Moving on to 46, we got Jake McGee. And I have Mr. Jake McGee going to the Oakland A's. They're losing a lot of arms in their bullpen, specifically Liam Hendricks. I think Jake McGee would be a nice fit. I know he's not Liam Hendricks. He's not a righty. He doesn't throw like Liam Hendricks. He's a lot more up and down in his career. Liam Hendricks is kind of entering a pretty dominant portion of his career right now. But I think Jake McGee would be a nice fit in Oakland. He seems like an Oakland time guy to me. I don't know. But yeah, I think he'd be a nice fit there to fit in their bullpen and replace some of the people they're losing this year in free agency. Next, we're going to move on to Cole Hamels, starting pitcher. I have him going to the New York Mets. Now, I know they got DeGrom and they got Syndergaard, and they could be looking for maybe a bigger name than Cole Hamels. I think he's a nice guy. They can get on a 1- or 2-year deal to fit in that 3-4 spot for them and pitch some innings. They didn't get anything out of Marcus Stroman this last year, and I have him leaving in free agency, obviously. And so I think he'd be a nice fit, a veteran guy to pitch for another year or two in New York and help fill out the end of that rotation. Moving on to John Lester, another starting pitcher, and I have him going to a team who was not very good this last year. Could kind of use help everywhere after they lost Mookie, they lost David Price, and yeah, I have John Lester going to Boston to be one of their starters. Hopefully Chris Sale can come back and they can pick up some more pieces in free agency, but I think John Lester would be a nice fit in that Boston rotation. Moving on to Adam Wainwright, the Cardinal. I have him leaving, sadly. I have him going to the Chicago White Sox. Adam Wainwright going to be leaving the Cardinals. probably not really happening, but I have him going on a 1-year deal, something like that. Chicago, just to pitch, at the top of not the top, but be a veteran presence, I guess, for a rotation that's Giolito, Dallas Keuchel, maybe Michael Kopech, Dane Dunning, a bunch of younger guys. I think he could be a really good staple in the back end of that bullpen and teach some of the younger guys some things. I know they have good catchers, especially Yasmani Grandal, to help their pitching staff, but I think nothing helps as much as having that veteran pitcher that does everything that those pitchers are going to do and can really give them some good insight. He's an amazing guy, so I hope he goes somewhere awesome. Probably going to stay a Cardinal, but moving on to Jake Arrieta. We have Jake Arrieta leaving Philly and going to none other than Colorado. I don't think they're really going to make a lot of moves in free agency, but one that would be cool is to see them get another, starting pitcher to go, John Gray, and I think he'd be a really good fit there. Jake Arrieta, just maybe pitch 2 or 3 spot for them, and with Herman Vasquez, and I think Jake Arrieta would be a good fit for Colorado. They need pitching. They definitely need starting and relief pitching. I really think he'd help their starting rotation out. And then, moving on to 41, we have Taijuan Walker. Another starting pitcher. There's a lot of starting pitchers and relief pitchers in this free agent class. Next year is going to be Studley at freaking shortstop. But they have a lot of pitchers in this class. So we're going to move on to Taijuan Walker. And I have him going to the Cincinnati Reds, as Trevor Bauer will be leaving in my free agency list and not going back to Cincy. I think they could use him. They got they got some really good starting pitchers in Sonny Gray and I can't think of his name. Luis Castillo and Sonny Gray, and I think he could fit in there nicely with them to be like a 3 guy for them, help Cincy fill in a little bit of the gap they're going to lose when Trevor Bauer leaves. Moving on, though, lastly, in this first 10, we have Mike Minor, last starting pitcher for a little while, and I have him going to the Chicago White Sox as well. I know they have a lot of young up-and-coming starting pitchers, but Mike Minor and who's the other guy I had going there? Wainwright, yeah. I think those 2 guys right there, they could give them a little 4 or 5, eat up some innings, maybe help out the younger pitchers. I don't know how much Kopech and Dane Dunning and those guys will really start and pitch as much in 2021. But, I think these guys could come help fill in those spots while they have to. And then if they get to a point where they're not needed as much, maybe be long relievers / kind of mentor player coaches, So I think that could really work out for those guys. And that's the first 10. Moving on to 39 through 28. And going to be working our way back up again from the bottom. Starting with Shane Green, reliever. And we have Shane Green going to the Washington Nationals. And they're going to need relief pitching. I know they're losing Sean Doolittle, and I think kind of through my whole predictions, I kind of went with them rebuilding, trying to get back to another championship while they still have Juan Soto and Max Scherzer, who's getting older and stuff like that, and Steven Strasburg, who's even now breaking 30 and getting to more of a veteran status. So while they still have those guys, I have them kind of throughout this whole prediction trying to get back to a World Series before they go and full-on rebuild and work on their prospects and try to ride out the Juan Soto, Victor Robles train. So I have him going to Washington to help fill in that spot that Sean Doolittle is going to leave. And then next we have Kike Hernandez from the Dodgers, utility guy, can kind of play all around the field, and I have him going to Oakland. Now they could use, with Tommy La Stella leaving, with Marcus Semien being done, I know they could use second, short, and they kind of have a couple guys like Chad Pinder and stuff like that that can play multiple positions. I think Kike could play second, short. He could play anywhere for them, and he could be more of an everyday starter because he really has the stuff to do it, or he could just be a really good utility guy that they use in the meantime. Next, we're going to another utility guy, Jurickson Profar, and I have him going from the San Diego Padres to the Arizona Diamondbacks. They need offense, they need relief pitching, they need starting, but they need a little bit of everything, but they were still a really solid team in 2020, and I think he could give them, they need an outfield spot after Starling Marte left. If Cattell goes out there, he could play second for them, and he could play a lot of spots for them realistically if they need it, and I think this would be a good fit for him and them. And next we have our second Cardinal, leaving the Cardinals, a longtime Cardinal, Yadier Molina, and I have Yadi going to a kind of a weird place, for him. I don't really picture him anywhere but St. Louis, but for this, we have him going to the Philadelphia Phillies to fill in for JT Realmuto, who is leaving in free agency. I have him going like on a 1-year deal, same type of thing, veteran guy, hopefully can work with some of the younger pitchers and Spencer Howard and Not even just like a younger pitcher like Spencer Howard, even a guy that's been there for a little bit like Aaron Nola. But yeah, just have him go there for a year and see how he does. Next we have Yasiel Puig, who didn't really play last year, finally got signed by the Braves and then had COVID. And I have him going actually back to the Atlanta Braves to actually live out that dream. Marcell Ozuna going out in free agency. They don't have a DH spot. I'm assuming Austin Riley get moved back down to third base. I think he could fill in left field for that spot. Next we're going to number 34, JBJ, Jackie Bradley Jr., leaving Boston and heading out to Houston to play for the Astros and fill in for George Springer, who is a big free agent this year. Well, you'll see where we have him going, but for now I have JBJ filling in the outfield for them, giving them nice defense to go along with Yordan Alvarez and Michael Brantley, who is also leaving, so Kyle Tucker will be out there with JBJ. And Trevor May next, or another reliever we have here. We have him actually going to Atlanta as well and filling in for that bullpen, who's going to lose Mark Melancon and Shane Green and people like that. So I think that'd be a nice fit for him. Another contender, going from a contender to a contender, another good offense. But hopefully he can kind of stand out in that bullpen. He kind of was shadowed by Tyler Duffy and Sergio Romo and some other guys in that bullpen for the Twins. But he's a really good closer, really good relief pitcher, setup guy, whatever he has to be. I think that'd be a nice fit for him. And we got Blake Trinan, another relief pitcher, closer pitcher, whatever you want to call him. I have him filling in for Trevor May in Minnesota and becoming their setup guy, closer, whatever he has to be there. He ended up closing out the World Series, not the World Series, but during the World Series. And he's a really good reliever. He can also be a closer for them, whatever they need in Minnesota to help get them over the edge and take on a World Series. Edwin Encarnacion had an option by the club, and they denied it. He is now a free agent, no longer with the Chicago White Sox. And I have him actually going back all the way to Toronto. With all their young studs offensively, they have some nice pitchers coming, and I have them picking up a few more later on. I think that he'd be a really nice fit there with Vladdy and Bo Bichette and Kevin Biggio and some of the younger guys they have there. I think he could be a DH for them, just kind of help mentor some of the younger hitters as well as be a really solid DH for them and even play first if Vladdy goes back to third or anything like that happens. You know, he could still play first if he has to. So I like the DH option for him in Toronto. I think it'd be a nice reunion for him. And next we're moving on to Kirby Yates, another closer, really solid guy. Didn't really get to play last year because of injury, but he's going to leave San Diego and he's actually going to follow Edwin Encarnacion out to Toronto. And I think this would be a really nice fit for him. They have Ken Giles, who was hurt a good chunk of last year, but still a really good reliever. I think he could fit in with him there, and they could be a really dominant duo to help close out games for the Toronto Blue Jays. And yeah, moving up to Alex Colomé, a really good reliever for the Chicago White Sox this year, but I have him actually sliding in to San Diego. I'm realizing how many of these guys were really close to each other and had taken their own spots, but whatever. Alex Colomé, I have him going to San Diego. They're losing Kirby Yates, and I think he'd be a nice fit to help bolster that bullpen a little bit. I was just looking at their team. I feel like there's not much they need, maybe a catcher or something like that. But their offense is pretty good. They got some really good starters in Clevenger and Danielson Lamet and Chris Paddock. But I thought maybe a closer for them, you know, especially with losing Yates. So I thought Alex Colomé would be a good one. And last we have for this 10-personer, we have Cesar Hernandez, second baseman. He can play a couple other spots, but primarily second baseman. And I have him going to St. Louis to fill in for Colton Wong, the Gold Glover, who is going to be gone out of there, sadly, for my Cardinals fans. And I have him switching over there. I think he'd be a nice fit. He's not Colton Wong, but, you know, he can hold down second base, and he can had actually a pretty good year. When I looked at his WAR, it's actually very close to Colton Wong's. So I think this would be a nice fit for them to fill in at second base as needed for now. All right, guys, we got 27 through 16 now. We're moving closer to the top 15, the top 10, and the top 5. We're going to be starting off 27 with starting pitcher Robbie Ray, who was traded this last year from the Diamondbacks to the Blue Jays, and have Robbie Ray actually going into a team we've mentioned earlier, the Milwaukee Brewers. I think the Milwaukee Brewers were big kind of a disappointment in 2020 with Christian Yelich having such a great year the year before, and they had Travis Shaw and Moose, and just they had a lot better team. Everyone expecting them to kind of, I know they still made the playoffs, but everybody knew they were going to lose the first round to the Dodgers. Also was the 1 seed, so I can kind of see that argument. But they had not a very good year, kind of disappointing, and I think he would help out their starting pitching a lot. Like I said earlier, Brandon Woodruff was kind of all they had last year as far as good starters go. Their bullpen's kind of top heavy, and their lineup was very lackluster. So I think he'd be a very nice fit there to kind of get them rolling back in the right direction before they go into like a full-on rebuild, because they're still very close to making a World Series run. So that's my pick for Robbie Ray. Charlie Morton, who made the World Series this year but did not get a ring, is a starting pitcher I have actually going to another team that we recently mentioned, and that is the St. Louis Cardinals. I know they have Jack Flaherty. I know they have a really stacked bullpen. And I think he'd be a very nice fit for that starting rotation behind Jack Flaherty. I think he's obviously, older, and I think he's 36 now, so he's a lot older. And some people are talking about if he doesn't go back to the Rays, he's going to retire. This is just an exciting pick. I think it'd be really cool to see him go pitch for the Cardinals. I think he's still a very good pitcher, and I think he showed it earlier on in the postseason. I think it'd be very fun to see him in a Cardinals uniform pitching for them. And yeah, moving on to Corey Kluber, another older gem. He's obviously better than Morton historically, but he's been hurt the last couple years. I think it'd be really cool to see Corey Kluber end up in Toronto, spearheading that starting rotation with Hyun-Jin Ryu and some other pitchers. I know I picked earlier a Toronto pitcher, and that was Mr. Nobody. That was a closer and a second baseman. So he's the only starting pitcher I picked for Toronto, but I think that he would be a very nice pick for their team to get that starting rotation, a really big ace at the top, especially if he comes back and is the Kluber that people think he can be, and I think he can be, and that'd be really awesome to see. Toronto's got a very studly young core of players, and see him with Nate Pearson and Ryu, that would be really cool. And so yeah, Corey Kluber. Moving on to Brad Hand. I have Brad Hand going to my own LA Angels. We need bullpen pitching. We need starting pitching. We need pitching all around. And Brad Hand, I think, would be a very nice start. We haven't had a legit closer since K-Rod. And I think it'd be really cool to see Brad Hand. We tried a lot of people. We had Cody Allen, Houston Street. Houston Street didn't pitch bad for us, but wasn't as legit as he was in San Diego. I think it'd be really cool. Brad Hand actually had a really good year. I'm kind of surprised the Indians are letting him go, but it kind of seems like they may be moving on to a rebuild. So with all the pitchers they've been shipping out. So I think Brad Hand would be a really nice pickup for my Angels. Moving on to an ex-Angel, we got Tom LaStella, who was ended up traded to the Oakland A's, but I do not have him going back there. I have him helping out that second, third base dilemma in Milwaukee after Shaw and Moose left, and going to Milwaukee to help them along with Jonathan VR. And I think that would really help out just in all facets, because he could play second, third, first if Daniel Vogelbach doesn't work out. I know it's a lot of lefties or switch hitters for Jonathan VR, but I think that would help the Milwaukee Brewers, gives them another lefty bat, another really good bat in my opinion, and it would just be a cool spot to see Tommy go to. Moving on, we have Mr. Colton Wong, who has had his spot already replaced in St. Louis in my predictions by Cesar Hernandez. And I have Colton Wong actually going to a spot that we haven't been talking about a whole lot. It is not really a contender last year, but the Boston Red Sox. And I think it'd be a really cool spot for him. As you'll see later on, I have some more people going to Boston. I've already picked a person to go to Boston. And to bolster the pitching, I think it'd be really cool with them having Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers in the infield. If they had Colton Wong over at second, a Gold Glover to kind of replace the Dustin Pedroia they've been missing the past couple years, and his bat is still pretty good, and he's a lefty, I think it'd be really cool to see him go to Boston. Next, we got James Paxton, who was a New York Yankee this last year, and I actually have him going to replace Jake Odorizzi in Minnesota for the Twins. I think James Paxton would work out very well there. They could use a couple extra starters, and had some really good starters this year with Kenta Maeda, had a really good year, and stuff like that. I think it'd be really nice to see James Paxton pitch well in Minnesota and help get them to a World Series. Moving on, we got Jose Quintana, who was actually had a very good year as a starter this year, and I have him going to Arizona to help out that Mad Bum rotation that could use a little bit more power, and I think that would be a really nice fit for him. I don't have a lot to say about him, to be honest, but I know they had to get him in here with the year he had, and I think it'd be cool to see the D-backs back in the running for some World Series runs, and I think it'd be cool to see him in part of that rotation. Jock Peterson, I think it's going to be the first time that we'll see Jock not be a Dodger, and I actually think that he won't be a Dodger either way, not just because of these predictions trying to make them more fun. I think he will leave. I don't know if this is a spot this will be the spot he will go. But I have Jock Peterson going to the Chicago White Sox to fill in that DH spot for Edwin Encarnacion. Obviously, he's a righty killer, but I think he could play the outfield if needed. But if he could just be a DH and hit on the days where they face righties, then they can get a right-handed DH for the other days. That's kind of what the Dodgers did this year. They kind of platooned him and A.J. Pollock and left, kind of switched them out and DH'd when they needed to use them. And I think that'd be really cool to see him do with the Chicago White Sox. They have a very solid lineup already, but to add in a little more pop can never hurt. And I don't think it'll be too expensive, so that would be nice to see. Moving on, we have my Angels losing Simba. Andrelton Simmons will be leaving in free agency, and I have him going to the Phillies. So he will be a Philly, taking over Didi Gregorius' spot in Philadelphia, and being just a Gold Glove shortstop, he won't have the pop that Didi had, and that might be something the Phillies will actually be looking for. It's kind of a hard spot to put him in. You'll see why later. I kind of fill up some other holes for other teams with shortstops, and so I just think this could actually potentially work out if Didi doesn't re-sign and the Phillies go for the Gold Glove and hope that Simmons can return to form. I guess that was a weird sentence. Back to when he was hitting like he was in 2018/19. He actually had some good stats offensively for the Angels, so I think that'd be cool to see. Moving on to 17, we got James McCann, and I have him moving to the New York Mets. He was a very good catcher this year for the Chicago White Sox, but they have Yasmani Grandal, and I do see James McCann leaving in free agency. I think the Mets would be a really cool spot to see him go. They need catching. They have a very good core of young hitters in Conforto, Jeff McNeil, and Polar Pete, but they also have a very good starting pitching with Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard. Their bullpen was very lackluster. They could use another good starting catcher or a good starting catcher. I think it'd be cool to see James McCann go there and fill that spot. Lastly, on this little short list before we get into the top 15, we have Jake Odorizzi, the former Twin starting pitcher. I have Jake Odorizzi leaving and going to the LA Dodgers. And this would be crazy to see on many levels. Just kidding. And I have Jake Odorizzi leaving and going to the Atlanta Braves. My marker is running out of ink. If you can see that, the Atlanta Braves. And they could always use more pitching. I know Mike Soroka was hurt, and they will have him back. They also have Max Fried back, who's a very studly young pitcher, very good year. And yeah, I think it would be really nice to see Jake Odorizzi there. That starting rotation could be very dominant if they add another guy of his caliber, and could push the Braves even further into the postseason, maybe make a World Series, and potentially win one. All right, guys, we're down to the top 15. I left off the top 5. We'll do those last for sure. But we're going to start off here with number 15, Nelson Cruz. And I have Nelson Cruz going to the Tampa Bay Rays. I know it doesn't make sense. I know the Rays don't really pay a lot in free agency and bring a lot of free agents in. They do a lot of trades and a lot of personal growth throughout their farm system. But I have Nelson Cruz going there. I think what you really saw in the World Series that they lacked the offensive power to keep up with the Dodgers. I think a Nelson Cruz DH would just be insane in the 4th spot in that lineup behind Randy Arozarena and Brandon Lau and guys like that. So I think it'd be really cool to see Nelson Cruz go there. If I got to be honest, I think he's staying in Minnesota. But this would be an awesome thing to see next year, to see him in Tampa Bay Blue. Next, I have Justin Turner. And I actually have Justin Turner going to the Washington Nationals. And I think it'd be cool to see him go to the Washington Nationals, because the Nationals are a team, like I said, they're very close to being back in the World Series. They were just there. They lost Rendon. They don't have Adam Eaton anymore. And Ryan Zimmerman didn't play last year. Other than that, their team isn't that far off of where it was when they made the World Series and won a World Series. Justin Turner, I do not think is Anthony Rendon, but I do think Justin Turner could turn their third bag, their third baseman, into something that it used to be very close to that. Cut that, reverse it. Justin Turner isn't Anthony Rendon, but he's still very good. He can lock down third, he can hit 25 bombs, and he can make up for some of the offense they lacked and give Juan Soto a little bit of a break in the batting order. So I think that'd be nice for them, and picking him up would be a huge pickup for the Washington Nationals. You have to be stoked on that. And moving on, we got Michael Brantley, and I actually have Michael Brantley going to St. Louis. St. Louis has Harrison Bader, a lockdown center fielder, streaky offensively, and they have Dexter Fowler, who's getting up there in age and just really isn't doing it in the outfield. Dylan Carlson and Tyler O'Neill are obviously both very good young players. Dylan Carlson I like a little more, but I think Michael Brantley going out there playing right field or left field, they can move around some other guys. I think he would just give them a solid bat in that lineup that they lost when they let Marcell Ozuna go, and he could really help them out in the outfield and just give them an everyday starter who's a good hitter. And I think it'd be really cool to see them pick someone up like that. They still are very close to a playoff push, in my opinion. They lost to the Padres this year in the postseason, but it's still a very good team. And I think it'd be cool to see them pick up somebody big like Michael Brantley. Next, we have Liam Hendriks, and I believe I have Liam Hendriks going to the LA Dodgers. They're losing Blake Trinan and Jake McGee, and I think they could use some bullpen help. And Liam Hendriks is the best bullpen pitcher on the market this year. I think the Dodgers will still be good to spend big, especially with some of the free agents they have coming off their books if they don't re-sign them. And Liam Hendriks, why would you not want him? The Dodgers like to spend money. They like to be the best. So Liam Hendriks going to LA. Now, for Masahiro Tanaka, I believe I have him going to the San Diego Padres. I know I said earlier they have Mike Clevenger, Danielson Lamet, and Chris Paddock. But why not have Tanaka too? The Yankees could go and get him, but they're going to have the same problem. They're going to have a bunch of starting pitchers with Garrett Cole, Luis Severino, and some of their younger guys. So I have him going to San Diego and just giving them a little more of that oomph and a little more to put into their pitching rotation. And he's just a really good, he could be a 4 or 5 guy, whatever he's got to be. And if he's your 4 or 5 guy, your rotation's looking very, very nice. And I think that'd be a nice fit for him in San Diego. And then Kevin Gausman, who had a very good year with the San Francisco Giants. I have Kevin Gausman going to a team we mentioned briefly earlier, hopefully making a comeback, the Boston Red Sox. Baseball's fun when as many teams as possible are good, and I think the teams that are close should try to be good, and Boston could definitely do that. Kevin Gausman would be a nice pickup for their starting rotation and start getting that rotation back to healthy, bringing Chris Sale back. I know they lost David Price in the trade with Mookie and all that stuff, but this would be a nice pickup for their team. Kevin Gausman, good starting pitcher. Didi Gregorius, I have going to a team who just lost their starting shortstop, and while he is not the Gold Glover of Andrelton Simmons, he is still a very nice defensive shortstop, and he's a lefty, which the Angels lack. And I think him going to LA and playing for the Angels would be very nice for not only the lefty and in the order, giving them that left-handed bat. He's just going to hit insanely. He went to Philadelphia on a 1-year deal, hit very well there, hit a couple bombs, really high average. I just think it'd be really cool to see Didi Gregorius as a Los Angeles Angel filling out their lineup and kind of finishing it off, in my opinion. Trevor Rosenthal, very dominant closer, relief pitcher this year for the San Diego Padres. I have him going to a team who should be spending money. Don't know if they will be, but the Philadelphia Phillies. They definitely could use bullpen help. That seemed to be the weakest part of their team last year, and I think he would definitely be a nice arm to put in there in that back end of the bullpen. Trevor Rosenthal, nice pitcher from San Diego, switching over to the East Coast, going to the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, number 7, Marcus Stroman, who was hurt this last year. Like I said earlier, didn't pitch for the Mets, but I also have him going to the Philadelphia Phillies, giving them that Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Marcus Stroman, and Spencer Howard. That's a nice 4. I know Spencer Howard's still very young, but he looked good at the couple outings he had last year. And yeah, Marcus Stroman, I think he's still a very dominant starting pitcher. He could definitely fill out any rotation and be a 2-3 guy. He was a starter, or an ace in Toronto, but I think him being a 2 or 3 guy for Philly, right in between Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, would be perfect for them and really help them fill out their rotation. Lastly, for this list, we got Marcus Semien, shortstop for the Oakland A's, who was known for his bat, but has become a very, very good defensive shortstop. Probably the best overall shortstop, definitely the best overall shortstop in my opinion, in this class of free agents. Marcus Semien, I have going to a team who had a very good offense last year on paper, made it to the playoffs, had very good starting pitching, but did not have a good shortstop, and that is Marcus Semien going to the Cincinnati Reds. I think they could use him there. They definitely could use an everyday shortstop, and I think he would fill in there next to Eugenio Suarez, and just be a really nice pickup for the Cincinnati Reds, filling out their batting order and letting them focus on getting some more pitching. All right, guys, last but not least, we have the top 5 free agents for this year's free agent class. We're going to start off with Marcell Ozuna. DH, can play the outfield, played this last year with the Braves and actually had an insane offensive year as their DH. And I have him filling in back where they had one of the greatest DHs, and that is Minnesota. Have them going in, filling in for Nelly Cruz, who went to Tampa Bay in this prediction list. I think if Nelson Cruz somehow does leave, this would actually be a perfect fit for Marcell Ozuna to fill in and give them pretty close to the same offensive production, and he could even fill in the outfield if needed. And so that I really love. I think that'd be a cool spot to see him go. And next we're going to move up to DJ LeMahieu, who is a New York Yankee, and can play third, can play short if needed, can play first. He can really play the whole infield if needed. Played shortstop in college. But I obviously have him going as a second baseman. And this is a team that we've been mentioning, getting back to World Series caliber. They were there 2 years ago. And I think it'd be really cool if Justin Turner goes to play third, to see DJ LeMahieu go to Washington, play for the Nationals, and play second base, giving them an infield with Turner, and DJ LeMahieu. With Trey Turner, Justin Turner, DJ LeMahieu, and then Juan Soto, Victor Robles in that outfield. I think it'd be really cool to see Washington get back to that form and try to make another run at the World Series after losing Rendon and Sean Doolittle and a couple of those guys. So that's my pick for DJ LeMahieu, Washington Nationals, new second baseman. George Springer, who I've seen being argued the best hitter in this class, and he may be, but I know he really does actually want to get out of Houston. And so this prediction may or may not be right, but I do think he will leave Houston and become see him on a new team. And I think George Springer, a good place for him, is a team that will lose their everyday center fielder in Jackie Bradley Jr., the Boston Red Sox. This is partially why I've been making some moves to the Red Sox. I think this would be cool to see them go in on a couple different players, some pitchers, a second baseman, and then fill it out with George Springer, a really big pickup. Obviously, with them trading Mookie and stuff, and they didn't want to pay the money, maybe they are more going towards a rebuild, but it would be cool to see George Springer go play center field for the Boston Red Sox and see them try to squeak out another World Series with Chris Sale and Xander Bogaerts and JD Martinez and some of those guys. JT Realmuto, the best catcher in baseball. I think it's not even arguably, but I guess you could say arguably the best catcher in baseball. JT Realmuto, Phillies, don't think they're going to spend the money to keep him. I don't know why they didn't extend him during the season. If they don't and they let him go, though, I think a cool spot to see JT Realmuto go to would be the San Diego Padres. They had a pretty stacked lineup last year, and they didn't even have a very good catcher until they picked up Aaron Nola's brother, Austin Nola, and he still is not JT Realmuto. He can do it all defensively, hitting. He can even steal a couple bags when needed. Just an all-around great player, and I think it'd be really cool to see them pick him up, see him go play for a really good team. I know Bryce Harper would be pretty pissed if he left, but it'd be cool to see him go to the Padres, right? Cool team, young team coming into the playoffs again after a few years off. And that leaves us with Trevor Bauer, the main appetizer we've been seeing on all of these trade lists. And I have Trevor Bauer. You know, it's not a homer pick. It's just a pick of where I think he's going to go, and that's the LA Angels of Anaheim. Trevor Bauer, the best starting pitcher in this class. The Angels need pitching. More than we need Didi Gregorius, more than we need Brad Hand. We need pitching. And I think Trevor Bauer being the ace for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, would be awesome. I think it'd be cool to see him there, leading off our rotation, maybe teaching some of the younger guys, Griffin Canning, Andrew Heaney, some of his tools of the trade, working with Dylan Bundy, who had a really good year this last year. If he can move to a 2-guy, Heaney 3, Canning 4, stuff like that, that really helps out the rotation and gives us a really solid ace at the top. And then bullpen and the hitting we can figure out later. Trevor Bauer, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. That's my last pick for this 2020-2021 free agents list. This is my first video with this working GoPro camera. Don't know how the quality is going to be audio-wise, video-wise. I don't even know if this is centered on my face, but I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys like these picks. I tried to have fun with it. I tried to be realistic and not, send people to teams like the Pirates who probably aren't going to be making any free agent moves. I know this isn't completely realistic, as some of these teams probably are going to keep some of these guys. I know a lot of people are saying DJ LeMahieu will stay. I know a lot of people are saying that Nelson Cruz is going to stay. I know a lot of people are saying that Charlie Morton's either a Ray or he's gone. But this is supposed to be fun and exciting and fun content, so that's why I kind of just went for, bigger moves, some different, see a lot of new faces on new teams. And I think that's what is the most fun about the off season, is seeing stuff like that. So I hope a lot of these do happen in the way that I hope that a lot of people switch teams, but I also know that that's not completely realistic. So if I get a lot of these wrong, don't at me, but thank you guys for watching. please like, please subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of this GoPro-ness. And see you guys later.